Good afternoon. My name is Ben Young and I'm the CEO of Nudge Analytics, and I'm excited to welcome you to our webinar today. Our mission at Nudge is to demystify the role content plays in the native space, so we're proud to partner with StumbleUpon to share insights we've both garnered. Today I'm joined by Teal Newland, VP of Revenue, Marketing and Partnerships at StumbleUpon, and from our team, Holly Blue alum, VP of Accounts at Nudge. Before we get started, a quick reminder of who we are and what we do. Nudge Analytics is a software platform for measuring content across paid content campaigns. Nudge provides post-click analytics, which enables customers to understand how people are engaging across their content. StumbleUpon, they know good content. StumbleUpon delivers the best pages on the web to millions of users each month, personalized to their interests. StumbleUpon Ads serves over 67 million native ad placements each quarter, helping over 120,000 brands and publishers distribute their content and tell their stories to engaged audiences. During this call, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box in the bottom right or tweet us at #NativeAdTalks. We'll circle back and address these at the end of the call. During this webinar, you'll hear from Holly and Teal about the 3 rules of creation, when and how to amplify your content, how to drive more earned impressions and measure your results, and what's next for native, talking about mobile. To get us started, I'll hand you over to Teal, who's going to talk about the 3 rules of creation.
So the 3 rules of creation. Before you can apply any of these tips for distribution we'll talk about later in the webinar, you've got to start with the content. But where do you start? We see too many brands creating content with their own properties or with publishing partners, but then simply telling their consumers what it's about through their social channels. Native content distribution requires a different point of view. It's not only about what the content is about, but more specifically what it will be used for, how it will be shared, and how people will use it to communicate. Through testing with many partners, we've distilled native social content into 3 main buckets. First, practical value or information. Are you giving consumers information that makes a difference, even a little one, in their daily lives? Second, emotion. Emotion drives so much of how we communicate. Is the content representing a state of mind? And finally, identity. What does the content say about me or my friends? And while you can't engineer virality, these categories will help you to ensure success at the creation stage. So you've created your content. Time to go really big with a campaign, right? Not so fast. Social Native provides a perfect testing ground for your great creative. The keywords: testing, learning, repeating, then amplifying. Early social seeding, especially on StumbleUpon, allows you to quickly test what's working and begin to accrue key performance metrics. On StumbleUpon, when you seed your content to targeted, engaged audiences, they then share and amplify your content on other social platforms. You get real-time, same-day results that can help to inform larger investments both on StumbleUpon and other social platforms.
Now let's take a look at that in a real campaign setting so you can see how you can extend your reach with a small part of your media budget. So holding budget back to place behind the content and the media channel that's working the hardest will allow you to extend your overall reach. It's a different way of thinking from booking banner ads, but one that will help you reach your paid content targets. Nudge lets you review your content from go live so that you can make informed decisions on what content to promote. By waiting till your content has gone live, you can then make real-time media decisions. For example, a client on a recent campaign used less than 1% of the campaign media budget to put behind their hardest working piece of content, which helped to increase their overall reach by 7%. Holding budget back to not only place behind the hardest working piece of content, but also the media channel that's driving the highest quality metrics, attention minutes or virality, will allow you to get the most out of your campaign.
So now onto a second key point of native advertising: brown M&Ms and Van Halen. So what do these have to do with content marketing? Holly's here to explain.
So everyone probably knows the story, but Van Halen used to have in their contract that they didn't want any brown candy in their dressing room before a concert. Famously, they once found a brown M&M in the room, and they then wrecked the entire dressing room and refused to go ahead with the concert. It was apparently their way of making sure that the entire contract had been read so that they'd know if it was safe to perform on stage. It was the one thing that had to be right for the show to go on. So, what's the brown M&M of paid content? Share copy. It's something that can have huge impact on your campaign, but can be easily overlooked as not being an integral part of it. So, when we say share copy, what are we referring to? The pre-populated copy, headline, and image that appears when hitting the share button on a piece of content. On a recent Nudge measured campaign, we reviewed the top 10% to find out why they were working so hard. The answer, they'd optimized their share copy. These pieces of content were driving 3 times the amount of earned impressions as the other pieces of content. This is as important as ad creative, as it's what your secondary audience sees and what persuades them to click. Great share copy can help reach, engagement, and virality, and it's important to remember this is the organic traffic back to your content. So what are some practical tips for share copy? Make sure that the share headline explains the content. There's a lot happening in someone's newsfeed. Make sure that you grab people's attention. Don't just include a duplicate of the headline in the share copy space. Make sure it clearly labels what the content's about. Pay attention to the imagery. On Facebook, for example, the image is what will stand out most and get people to click through. Make sure you're using the largest size available and that it sums up the subject. A lot of social sharing just pulls on the first image rather than thinking if it actually matches the headline. And lastly, it's important that you as the agency or brand are asking to sign off the share copy. It's how a lot of the audience will discover the content. It needs to be engaging and on brand. So now that we've covered some practical tips when it comes to creating share copy, let's review back on why people will share the content.
And again, to review earlier points, it's not just about what the content is, it's how people will share. And how people share? Through information, emotion, and identity. So this first example, information. Quinoa porridge makes everything better. But not only does the article provide practical value and information, the image says everything about the article in a single shareable moment. Emotion. This example is an emotional gift on several different levels. A math problem that looks very simple from the outset, yet you wonder why so many Harvard students got it wrong. Finally, there's the wonder of actually solving the problem itself. And finally, and very important, identity, providing content that we can all relate to. For millennials, this has been born in the 90s. This content provides common ground across a number of different levels. So we know the drivers of sharing, but now we have to look beyond shares into other metrics that truly drive performance for native content.
Here's an example of 2 pieces of paid content for Netflix. One was on New York Times for Orange is the New Black, which was more of an information piece about female inmates, and another about changing content consumption on Wired, which was an identity-driven piece, i.e. we all watch TV and we can relate. So the reason quality metrics are so important is that if we were just comparing these 2 articles on shares alone, it would seem as if Wired had definitely performed the best. However, the New York Times content garnered more attention minutes than Wired and also high-earned impressions. Here we can see that both pieces of content play to their platform's strengths and community. So what are the takeaways? You need the full picture to understand what works. The Wired article was more thought leadership focused, so its objectives are different to Orange is the New Black. You're buying the audience as much as the content. You need to know which metrics will qualify the content's success. This is where Nudge comes in. We give varied metrics such as engagement, earned impressions, virality, and attention minutes, so that you can report across all parts of a campaign, no matter what the objective is. Most importantly, comparative metrics are needed. Relying on multiple measures with varying setups and definitions is hard to draw insight from. Quality metrics are a must. Who trusts a page view these days?
And this is so important. Creative and amplification is key, but if you don't invest in measurement tools and understanding what you need to be measuring, none of us will make it to the second campaign. Had the Netflix campaign been compared on shares alone, many of the key engagement metrics would have been missed entirely. And at StumbleUpon, we added an additional layer of metrics to Nudge's data, which is quality score. Clicking the like button within the StumbleUpon experience on mobile and desktop sends a very explicit signal to our algorithm that a piece of content is good. This provides a real-time value for partners because it results in earned impressions and visits. In this specific example for HBO True Detective, the microsite continues to garner additional earned traffic months after the campaign ended. The campaign earned over 45,000 unique exposures during the paid portion of the campaign and over 79,000 post-campaign, meaning over 144,000 people saw this campaign at no cost to the client as a result of earned amplification. And while this content wasn't created specifically for mobile, over 50% of the organic traffic earned was driven via mobile devices, which brings us to our next section, creating and measuring for mobile.
So during 2015 so far, we at Nudge have seen a 30% increase in mobile users across all measured campaigns. It's no big surprise. We've all heard that mobile was going to be bigger than desktop over the last 4 years. However, what does this mean when it comes to native? You need to make sure that you're looking at measurement of content with mobile in mind, as well as the formatting of your content for mobile. Two key metrics that we see as indicators of success in mobile measurement are attention minutes. This looks at the time someone is actively engaged in the content and scrolling through the article. Also, percentage scrolled. This looks at how far someone scrolled through the content before leaving. This is a great indicator of success, as it shows if the content was engaging enough for the reader to finish the article. It also lets you know if there are optimizations needed. Did you need to change up the way that you're displaying the content?
Both attention minutes and percentage scrolled are all about time spent with the content. Did a consumer engage, and for how long? At StumbleUpon, we also look at the necessity of measurement and specific attributes to native content campaigns. Finally, we talked about the need to integrate emotion, identity, and practical value into your campaigns. This is easier said than done for mobile, right? So how do you do it? Well, at StumbleUpon, we found an ad format that captures all these attributes. With the wrap, it's an interactive mobile content format that allows brands and publishers to deliver rich stories with snackable pieces of content. This combines website and mobile app technology. The wrap creates a seamless brand experience that drives consumer engagement. Inside a single wrap, consumers can watch a video, view a slideshow, read articles, and much more. The wrap translates across verticals, from fashion brands showcasing the latest collection in a digital lookbook, liquor brands highlighting custom handcrafted recipes, and automotive brands creating the ultimate virtual test drive. The possibilities are really endless. In this example we're showing on screen is a proof of concept we created for Marshalls that has the challenge of not selling goods online. But in this example with the wrap, it was all about driving awareness, intent, and eventual store visits, all through a mobile experience. So in summary, what have we learned today? The first, I'll say it again, content creation. Think about practical value, information, emotion, and identity. And test before you amplify.
Don't forget about share copy. It's something that can have huge impact on the reach and virality of your campaign. Also, measure in the right way. Understand the audience and publisher before setting quality metrics for your campaign.
And mobile is a perfect device for native content, but it's really about finding the right format and, of course, applying the right measurement. So with that, let's open it up to questions. And if you hang around after questions, we have a special offer for attendees. Questions?
So do these tips apply to video?
Absolutely. The tips and tricks of native content distribution apply to video. Video, of course, has some inherent measurement metrics, which comes to views. How long did people see the content, for how many seconds, for how many minutes? But when you look at the tenets of for video distribution, they really apply as well to really all of our tips and tricks.
Definitely.
We've got one here. For StumbleUpon, how do you go through to optimize targeting?
Absolutely. So we have two different ways, a couple different ways to optimize targeting. First is we have a wonderful account management team that you can work with one-on-one to really understand your target audience on StumbleUpon. Most importantly with StumbleUpon, that we consider ourselves a buy that is very emotionally and interest driven. So people, if you're not familiar with StumbleUpon, they come to us, they give us some basic demographic information, their age, their gender, their location, and most importantly, things that they're interested in. That's, we happen to be sitting in New York City, which is an interest topic, food, wine, film, fashion, etc. Once we have a sense of that interest profile, we can effectively target content, target native solutions to individuals based on those parameters.
So the next question is, how do you suggest testing? What do you think about A/B testing?
You want to take this one?
Sure. So kind of as we were describing earlier in the campaign, in terms of testing, what we would suggest is, as also Till was saying, when you first push content live, seed it, find out what's working the best so that you can get more of an understanding before you start amplifying the content. And of course, A/B testing in terms of share copy, imagery, headlines, it's also really essential to understanding which piece of content is going to work the best.
Yeah, and I think it's frankly beyond A/B testing. When you get into the nuances of share copy, for example, or image testing, small differences we found at our own social channels, because StumbleUpon is also a consumer product, can make a big difference. And so we encourage something kind of beyond the A/B testing. Maybe it's A/B/C/D testing. But the more testing, whether with copy or imagery or creative in general, the better the results you'll see long term.
So next up, we have which ad formats are most effective within the native ad space? Video, photos, articles, infographics.
Wow.
Thanks on the spot.
I know. I hate to use the response, it kind of depends. But again, let's go back to earlier on the webinar as far as the tenets, the initial tenets of content creation. Does it inform? Does it inspire emotion? Or does it create identity? And I think that if you're creating within that platform, and again, that we're not going to guarantee virality around any singular piece of content, that those are the things that begin to drive engagement and drive shares. I think part of this webinar as well was really thinking about the place on which you're distributing as much as you do the content you're creating. And for StumbleUpon, we happen to be in a situation or have a platform that works with a number of different formats, but that's not always the case with other platforms. A video, an infographic, a singular image may do much better on other platforms, other social platforms we've mentioned in this webinar, than others.
Yeah, I think it's really going back to what we were talking about in that Netflix slide. It's really about understanding the publisher, the audience, before you book those kinds of content to find out, what are the quality metrics you need to find out if those things are going to be the best, use for the campaign.
Absolutely.
Okay, so up next, when should you amplify your content? At the beginning or at the end of the campaign? If I run a campaign and still haven't seen results, can I still amplify my content?
Absolutely. It is never too late in native advertising, never too late. As discussed, it's absolutely key early in the campaign to do some testing, early amplification, again, to see how people are reacting, to see how people are sharing content. We certainly have a number of examples and work with a number of clients who come to us at StumbleUpon and certainly come to Nudge at different points in the campaign with, I'm just thinking about creative content. Where do I start? How do I create? Where should I be seeding? To, frankly, I created the content and I thought I was using a singular distribution source for that amplification, and it's not working for me. Help. Certainly at StumbleUpon, we can give that content an additional boost mid or nearly the end of the campaign to fulfill on guarantees. But in conjunction with Nudge, we can look at how are you really measuring the way this campaign is performing? Are you looking at the right things? And if you have to deliver on certain performance metrics for a client, are you in the right places? And so all of that can happen over the course of a campaign.
Definitely. And it's all about making sure that you've got the measurement during that whole process. So at the beginning, at the middle, understanding what's working the best, understanding which media source is driving back through to the content and performing the best in terms of quality metrics. So not just clicks back through, are they spending, high average attention minutes? Are they, not bouncing? What are they doing? So if at any point, of course, you should, amplify your content, but just keeping an eye on it throughout the whole phase is great. Where can I leave comments? You should be able to leave comments in the chat box or in the question part on the side frame of webinar. Next up, do you have category recommendations in terms of content development, i.e. for retail or CPG?
So category recommendations in terms of content development. I'd say, again, looking at the distribution endpoint for the content would be key, especially for retail and CPG. I use an example with CPG, and there could be very interesting iconic imagery, driven by the individual products, but then you could also look at the use case for those individual products. And is this something that you're creating as a brand, and what kind of authenticity and point of view you can create on your own, but more importantly, where you would need to partner. And a good example of this, I think, in the consumer packaged goods category is recipes. And we see a number of products, a number of consumer packaged good products really come to life through content partnerships, and recipes being a great example of that. When I was on the agency side at Digitas, we did a good amount of work with Kraft, the Philadelphia cream cheese, a brand that certainly has a reason to be at a very strong point of view with their own brand presence, but really was able to bring the brand to life, and this is Philadelphia cream cheese, through partnerships with recipe creators and syndicators.
Yeah, I think from us, definitely not so much for retail, but recently looking at the auto category, I think it's really important, again, to just understand, what audience you're looking at, what publishers, are you looking for, 50 plus, are you looking for millennials, to kind of understand which are the kinds of pieces of content on what publishers. So, for example, if high attention minutes are something you're looking for, a sponsored article might be the best bet. If you're looking for high engagement and virality, a quiz. So it's really just understanding, the publisher, the audience, and what your quality metrics are as an outtake.
And to bring it back to our slide on the wrap, a specific StumbleUpon ad product, the wrap allows you to package and syndicate a number of different assets that you may be creating. On the retail front, in the example with Marshalls, that's something that we could package individual imagery of the products, potentially an interactive quiz, a video, and a direct drive to the site itself. So there are different ways to package that content and at the same time test and optimize within the wrap within a single creative unit.
Okay, next up we have, that one unfortunately went away. We have, what are some other metrics Nudge uses to measure performance? I can't say that one. So Nudge, of course, looks at what we've already talked about, which is earned impressions, which if anyone isn't aware is the impressions back through to a piece of content from a social share. So this is really important, not just looking at how engaging is the content, but after it's been shared, are people actually coming back to read the content that you've paid for? Also virality. And what virality looks at is if someone comes in from a share, what's the propensity for that person to then share again? So you can really get an early indicator of kind of how quickly that content's traveling. We also look, also at a campaign level and a content view as well. And we look at, where do people drop off on a piece of content, the time to scroll, attention minutes. We also benchmark media sources. So if you're, investing money on Outbrain, social channels, trying to understand when people come back through to the content, is that driving high attention minutes? And I think that might be all the questions that we have. If anyone else has anything to add in, let me know. No, I think that's it. Cool. So as a thank you for your participation in today's webinar, we'd like to extend a special offer. The first 5 people to book a demo with either Nudge or StumbleUpon will see their budget go 20% further with extra reach from StumbleUpon and insights from Nudge. For more details, you can email myself or Teal, and here are our details. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.